What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it's Lazy Daze Tubby and I'm back at it again on my solo channel doing some more history reaction for you guys today, and it is some more Kings and Generals content for you, and it is their series Caesar, the Gallic and Civil Wars, and we're on episode 6, Alesia 52 BC. I'm really enjoying this series and I'm really looking forward to what Kings and Generals have in store for me in this episode. I really like Caesar in general, so I'm just liking the series. It's one of my favourite ones, and I'm definitely looking forward to finding out more about this and about Caesar in general. So if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments box down below. If you guys haven't already, head over to Kings and Generals page, a link is going to be in the description box down below. If you're enjoying my content, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we are just going to jump straight into this one.
After years of campaigning, Caesar had lost his first open battle against the Gauls, this time led in a revolt by the Arverni king Vercingetorix. His allies, both in Rome and in Gaul, were now wary of the situation and would pounce if he couldn't prove that he was still in control. The final chapter of the Gallic War is about to start. While Caesar was fighting a losing battle against Vercingetorix at Gergovia, his best legate, Titus Labienus, was sent to deal with rebellions in northern Gaul. Local Gauls, emboldened by Vercingetorix and led by Camulogenus, were consolidating around modern Paris, which was called Lutetia at that time and was the capital of the Parisii. Labienus had left a legion near Agedincum in order to have a supply line to Caesar and marched with 4 more legions towards Lutetia. His troops took Metlosidum along the way, but their attempts to cross the river Seine were blocked by Camulogenus. Labienus was forced to retreat back to Metlosidum. Luckily for him, his scouts had found another crossing near Metlosidum. He crossed there and moved against the Gauls. However, Camulogenus used Vercingetorix's scorched earth tactic, burning Lutetia and retreating to the swamps beyond. At the same time, Labienus learned about Caesar's defeat at Gergovia, which provoked a big Gallic tribe called Bellovaci, led by Corius, to rebel. So he knew that he had to retreat beyond the Seine and unite with his legion in Agedincum. Labienus's decision to divide his forces into 3 provoked Camulogenus into attacking him to the south of Lutetia without waiting for the Bellovaci, and in the ensuing battle, the Romans used the fact that their divided forces were closer to each other. Each group supported the other, and the legions managed to defeat the Gauls with ease. Camulogenus was killed in the process, which slowed down the consolidation of the anti-Roman rebellion in northern Gaul.
Right. Nice.
Caesar and Labienus both retreated towards Agedincum, where they united their forces. Meanwhile, more and more Gauls were joining the rebellion, and after the rest of the Aedui joined it, even the Roman province of Narbonensis was attacked by them. Caesar and his 10 legions moved through the Sequani and Lingonese territory to the east, in order to gain a line of retreat to the Roman province of Gallia Transalpina. At the same time, Caesar's envoys secured a group of Germanic mercenaries who joined the Roman cavalry. Vercingetorix and his 80,000 tried to attack Caesar when the latter was trying to cross the Vingaiani River, but the Romans were able to stop the attack with ease. It is not clear why, but this minor defeat either disheartened Vercingetorix or showed him that he couldn't win against the Romans in an open battle, so he probably tried to recreate the factors that led to the victory at Gergovia when he retreated to the Mandubii capital of Alesia. Caesar followed him to the settlement. Alesia was a well-defended city on a hill, and Vercingetorix sent messages to his nearby allies to come to his aid. Vercingetorix was in a strong position. He outnumbered Caesar, commanding a force of up to 80,000 men, and was surrounded by allies who would be able to quickly send men to reinforce him. From his position, it should be a simple rerun of Gergovia. He would wait on the high ground for his allies to arrive so they could either disrupt the Roman supply lines or attack them in the rear. Caesar had learnt his lesson though. Despite his smaller numbers, he immediately began the work of fully surrounding and besieging Alesia, something which Vercingetorix had been able to prevent him doing at Gergovia. The Romans began constructing a 16-kilometer wall, fully encircling the entire city, complete with palisades, trenches, and towers, hoping to cut off any escape. Vercingetorix sent his cavalry out to try and disrupt these works, but the legions were able to form a defensive line to hold them, while the German auxiliaries flanked around the side. The Germans proved to be vital to the Roman cause, and their superior horsemanship forced the Gallic cavalry to retreat back into the city, killing many as they were funneled into the narrow gates. Realizing that he would soon be completely surrounded, Vercingetorix decided to send out what was left of his cavalry at night to sneak past the Roman line and head to the nearby tribes to request reinforcements as soon as possible.
Can he get them in time? Let's just take a minute. For the Roman, I know I keep getting mentioned in the comment, it's that all Romans were effectively engineers. It is still a feat to do this, and it's so impressive what the Romans can do. The amount of defences they build is just, it's insane.
Upon completing the first wall, Caesar learned from some Gallic deserters that these messengers had been sent, and so constructed a second wall, this one almost 21 kilometers long, and complete with 2 trenches and a moat, facing outwards to protect against any Gallic
2 trenches and a moat. 2 trenches and a moat.
Reinforcements, creating a donut-like structure with Alesia in the center. He next sent out huge foraging parties to collect enough food to sustain his troops for the next 30 days. In doing this, Caesar had effectively robbed Vercingetorix of his advantages. With the Romans thus defended and supplied, it was the Gauls who now faced a well-dug-in enemy, and it was now Vercingetorix whose time was running out. With an army of 80,000 men inside the city, plus the civilian population and no way of resupplying, it was only a matter of time before he was starved out. This was Caesar's magnum opus. Faced with a desperate situation, Vercingetorix made the difficult decision to expel anyone who wasn't going to be fighting: the old, the sick, women and children. He had hoped that Caesar would allow these people through the Roman defences and to safety, but Caesar was not in a merciful mood. He refused to let them pass, and the civilians were left between the walls of Alesia and the Romans, imploring both sides for food and water, neither side relenting. Over the next few days, many died of starvation and thirst, the space between the armies becoming full of the dying and dead. The Gallic allies finally arrived to try and relieve the siege, under the command of Vercingetorix's cousin, Vercassivelanus. It is hard to say precisely how many there were. Caesar claims that the number was as high as 250,000, with modern estimates suggesting somewhere between 70 and 100,000.
Still
Whatever
a big old
the true
force.
number was, all agree that the Romans were now significantly outnumbered, at least 2 to 1. On the first day of their arrival, they quickly filled in the first Roman trench and sent across a combined force of light infantry and cavalry to probe the defences, whilst the rest of the army set up camp. Caesar countered by sending out his own Germanic cavalry, and a fierce skirmish ensued. From their elevated position inside the city, the besieged Gauls saw that their allies had arrived, and simultaneously began massing for a sally against the inner fortifications. However, the Germans once again proved their skill, outmaneuvering and flanking their Gallic counterparts, forcing them back across the trench and into the Gallic camp. Seeing his allies defeated, Vercingetorix decided to bide his time and held off his attack. The reinforcements spent the next day constructing siege ladders, and then, at midnight, launched another attack. Taking the Romans by surprise, they found some initial success, but Mark Antony, in his first battle, was commanding this section of the wall and proved himself to be a composed and skillful lieutenant, pulling troops from other sections of the walls to reinforce his position. Again, Vercingetorix began to sally out to try and help his allies, but was delayed by having to fill the Roman trench. By the time he had crossed it, Antony had successfully fought off the assault, and Vercingetorix
Nice.
again withdrew into the city. Following these two failed assaults, Vercassivelanus conducted more thorough reconnaissance of the Roman position, and discovered that a steep hill overlooked the Roman wall in the northern section. Hoping to use this high ground to his advantage, the next day the Gauls used their overwhelming numbers to attack the entire length of the outside wall, but concentrated a larger force under Vercassivelanus on this portion.
Right, okay. Understandable, he's got better
At
side
the same
there.
time, Vercingetorix again sallied out, this time attacking the length of the interior Roman fortifications, hitting wherever looked weakest. This was the toughest the fighting had been so far. Caesar, as he had done at the Battle of Sabis, dashed from cohort to cohort, urging his men on, leading reserve cohorts personally to points where the defences looked like they were faltering. Vercassivelanus began making headway, piling earthworks up against the walls in order to mount them, and using hooks and siege engines to tear down the Roman defences. Caesar committed every man he had left of his reserves, pulling every man who could be spared and sending them into the action. It was a desperate battle for the Romans. Between the two walls there would be no escape, and if the line faltered, the entire army would surely be wiped out. The Roman line was holding the Gallic army, but it seemed like it wouldn't last for long. But then, Caesar appeared at the top of the hill. Leading the Germanic auxiliaries, he crashed into the rear of the Gallic reinforcements. Surrounded now on all sides, the Gauls who had pushed through the breach were decimated, and the tide of battle changed.
Go on, Caesar!
Seeing their largest contingent broken, the morale of the rest of the Gallic reinforcements shattered, and they quickly fled. With this threat thus neutralized, the Romans turned to deal with Vercingetorix, who was attacking the interior wall, and they were able to force him back into the city.
Wow.
With the city still besieged and his reinforcements spent, Vercingetorix surrendered.
How many men did Caesar have to deal with there? Two armies. Insane.
It is unknown how many Romans died, but the casualties must have been fairly significant given the intensity of the fighting, particularly at the point where the fortifications had been breached. The Gallic relief force suffered heavy casualties. The entirety of the besieged army in Alesia was either killed or enslaved, and both Vercassivelanus and Vercingetorix were taken alive.
Oh my god.
Although most of the rebel leaders were either dead or captured, the resistance against Rome was far from over, as the Bituriges, Carnutes, Bellovaci, Atrebates, Anticavi, and others were still in open rebellion. In January of 51 BC, Caesar moved against the Bituriges. This winter campaign surprised the Bituriges, who were probably unprepared for it, and soon they sued for peace, which allowed Caesar to return to his winter quarters. However, soon the Bituriges were attacked by the Carnutes for yielding to the Romans. Once again, Caesar marched swiftly and took his enemies by surprise, forcing the Carnutes to submit. The Romans made new winter quarters at Cenabum and stayed there until the spring. Leaving 6 legions in the area, Caesar took 4 and moved against the Bellovaci of Corius and the Atrebates of Commius. This campaign proved difficult, as both tribes abandoned their lands and fought a guerrilla war against the Romans. Fortunately for the legions, Corius was killed in one of the ambushes, which proved to be the final straw for the Bellovaci. They were convinced to seek peace, while Commius retreated to the east to continue his resistance. To the south, the Anticavi attacked Liminum and were defeated by Caesar's lieutenants. The remainder of the Gallic forces in the area attempted to defend at Uxellodunum, but were defeated by Caesar soon after. The last engagement of the war saw Commius defeated in the north, and the rebellion was over.
There you go.
Gaul was pacified, and Caesar won over the remaining Gallic leaders with gifts and the promise of lower tribute. He knew that the battle for Rome was about to start. The civil war that would end the centuries-long republic was just around the corner.
And
thus
we
ends
are
the first
interested
season of
in
our
that.
series on Gaius Julius Caesar. but he will be back for the second season, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button.
So definitely make sure you have subscribed if you haven't already. And I really enjoyed that episode of this series, guys. So plenty more to come. We're going to be moving on to the Civil War side of things. It was interesting to see how Caesar sort of wrapped it up towards the end there. I cannot believe that he built a fortification around a fortification around a fortification. Absolutely incredible. The engineers of the Roman society back then were amazing, and I know that every single soldier had the ability to help, and that's what made these things possible. But it's really enjoyable to see. So if you guys enjoyed my reaction, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell button. I will catch you in the next video.